Have you ever wondered what makes someone irresistibly captivating? What is it that draws people in, makes them want to be around you, listen to you, and even follow your lead without even knowing why? It's a magnetic force, something that goes beyond physical attraction or charisma. It's something deeper, almost primal. If you've ever been curious about how some people seem to effortlessly seduce others into their orbit, then Robert Greene's The Art of Seduction is the book for you. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, isn't this just a book about romantic seduction? Well, yes and no. While the book does dive into the dynamics of love and attraction, it's not just about getting someone to fall for you. The Art of Seduction is about understanding human behavior, power dynamics, and influence. It's about learning how to use subtlety, charm, and psychological tactics to get what you want, whether it's in personal relationships, business negotiations, or social settings. The power of seduction isn't limited to romance. It's a tool that can be applied in almost every aspect of life. When I first picked up the book, I thought it might be a bit of a how-to guide on flirting or manipulation, but what I found was so much more layered and complex. Greene dissects the process of seduction, not just as a way of drawing people in, but as a way to understand their desires, vulnerabilities, and needs. It's less about playing games, and more about tapping into the subtle art of influence and understanding the power of emotions. One of the things I found most intriguing as I read this book is how it outlines different seduction types, how some people seduce through charm, others through mystery, and some by simply offering an escape from the mundane. It made me realize that we all have a natural style of seduction, even if we're not fully conscious of it. For example, there's the sirens, those who captivate with their beauty and allure. Think of someone like Cleopatra, who didn't just rely on physical charm, but also a deep understanding of the art of making others feel special and desired. Then there are the rakes, who draw others in with their intense passion and single-minded focus on their object of desire. I couldn't help but think about people I've encountered in my own life who embody these traits. People who have a certain way of making everyone around them feel like they're the center of attention. What struck me about Greene's analysis of seduction is how it isn't just about winning someone over. It's about creating a deep emotional connection. It's about understanding the human psyche, the things that drive us, and using that knowledge to build rapport and influence. This is where the book goes beyond the superficial level of attraction and really digs into psychology. As I read through the different seductive archetypes, I started thinking about the people in my life who seem to effortlessly charm and influence others. One person who immediately came to mind was a close friend who always seems to know just what to say and when to say it. Whether it's at a social gathering or a business meeting, she has this uncanny ability to read the room and engage with people on a level that makes them feel seen and understood. The more I thought about it, the more I realized she embodies many of the qualities that Greene discusses: emotional intelligence, an understanding of what others want, and the ability to make people feel valued without trying too hard. In a way, she's a real-life example of the principles Greene teaches. But the art of seduction is also about learning how to protect yourself from being seduced. Greene doesn't just teach you how to influence others. He also explains how to recognize when you're being manipulated. Whether it's a person or a situation, understanding the dynamics of seduction allows you to gain more control over your own decisions and actions. One of the lessons that really stood out to me was Greene's idea that seduction isn't about immediate gratification. It's about creating desire, building anticipation, and offering something that feels just out of reach. He compares it to the way some of the most successful seducers, like Casanova or Mata Hari, operated, using mystery and intrigue to captivate their targets. It's about playing with emotions and timing, giving people just enough to feel drawn to you without giving them everything at once. This concept made me reflect on times when I've experienced attraction or a pull towards someone or something, only to realize later that the power of that attraction wasn't based on reality. It was based on the anticipation and mystery surrounding it. Whether it's a new job prospect, a potential romantic relationship, or even a product you're eager to buy, the principle of anticipation is often what keeps us coming back for more. It's fascinating how much of our behavior is driven by the promise of something, rather than its immediate fulfillment. The book also challenges us to think about how we seduce ourselves. Greene argues that part of mastering the art of seduction is learning to seduce our own mind, to build our own self-confidence, create mystery within ourselves, and develop a sense of inner allure that radiates outward. This idea really made me reflect on how we often rely on others for validation or attention, when in reality the most powerful seduction starts from within. I think that's one of the most powerful takeaways from the art of seduction. Understanding the psychology behind attraction and influence is not just about using it on others. It's about using it to understand ourselves and how we interact with the world. Whether you want to influence people in business, win someone's affection, or simply understand the subtle forces at play in human behavior. So, as we get into this summary, I invite you to think about your own experiences with seduction, whether it's been in love, business, or friendships. How have others seduced you? And how have you used these techniques consciously or unconsciously to create connection and influence? This book offers powerful tools for self-reflection and growth. If this topic sparks your curiosity, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more engaging book summaries that challenge your thinking. I'd love to hear your thoughts. How do you define seduction? Have you ever been seduced without realizing it, or used some of these principles in your life? Now, let's get started with the seductive world of Robert Greene's The Art of Seduction. Diving into the art of seduction felt like stepping into an entirely new world, a world where influence isn't about brute force or logical argument but the delicate, almost magical art of drawing people in and keeping them enthralled. It's not just a book about romantic relationships, though it certainly doesn't shy away from that topic. Instead, it's a guide to understanding and mastering the dynamics of attraction. One of the first things that struck me while reading this book is how Greene frames seduction as a kind of power that anyone can wield, regardless of their looks, status, or background. It's not about being born charming or attractive. It's about learning how to understand what others want and becoming the person who can offer it to them. Greene doesn't sugarcoat this. Seduction is a game. The book starts by exploring the different archetypes of seducers. This part was fascinating because it made me think about how we all have elements of these characters in us, even if we don't realize it. For example, there's the siren, who captivates with her allure and makes the world feel more exciting. Cleopatra, with her theatrical entrances and air of mystery, is the perfect example of a siren. Reading about her reminded me of how much of seduction is about creating a sense of drama and excitement. It's not about being perfect, it's about being intriguing. On the other hand, there's the rake, a character who thrives on passion and intensity. The rake isn't just someone who's deeply charismatic. There's someone who makes you feel like you're the only person in the world who matters to them. I couldn't help but think of a friend who, despite his flaws, always manages to win people over with his intensity. He listens with such focus and makes you feel so special that you can't help but be drawn to him. Then there's the ideal lover, who crafts themselves to be exactly what their target desires. This type thrives on creating an illusion, often fulfilling fantasies that their target didn't even know they had. It reminded me of stories about Casanova, who wasn't just a charmer but someone who could make each person feel like they were living a romantic dream. One of my favorite archetypes to read about was the dandy. Dandies are those rare individuals who refuse to conform to traditional roles and instead create their own unique identity. Think of David Bowie or even historical figures like Oscar Wilde. Their power lies in their ability to intrigue and inspire by being unapologetically themselves. But the book isn't just about archetypes. It's also about understanding the psychology of seduction. Greene talks a lot about how people are drawn to what they lack. For instance, someone who feels trapped in their daily routine might be drawn to someone who represents freedom and adventure. It made me think about how much of our attraction to others is rooted in our own unmet needs. Have you ever met someone who seemed to embody something you were missing? Whether it was confidence, spontaneity, or a sense of mystery? One of the more sobering parts of the book is the chapter on anti-seducers. These are the people who repel rather than attract, often because they're too self-absorbed, insecure, or boring. Reading this, I couldn't help but reflect on times when I might have unintentionally fallen into these patterns, maybe by talking too much about myself or failing to create a sense of intrigue. What I appreciate about Greene's approach is how he combines historical anecdotes with psychological insights. For example, he tells the story of how Cleopatra seduced not just one but two of the most powerful men of her time, Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. Her methods weren't about beauty. By all accounts, she wasn't conventionally beautiful, but about creating an irresistible aura of mystery, drama, and allure. It's a reminder that seduction is less about looks and more about presence and energy. As I read through this first section, I found myself thinking about how much of life is influenced by subtle, almost invisible forces. Whether it's in relationships, work, or social settings, the ability to connect with others on a deep emotional level is a kind of superpower. What makes the art of seduction so captivating is that it doesn't just tell you what works, it also challenges you to think about why it works. Why are people drawn to mystery? Why do we crave attention and validation? And how can we use this understanding not just to influence others, but to build more meaningful connection? As I continued through the art of seduction, I couldn't help but notice how much the book reveals about human nature, not just how we influence others, but how we ourselves are influenced. Green has a way of exposing the subtleties of our interactions, showing that seduction is as much about understanding psychology as it is about charm or allure. One of the most fascinating parts of this section is Green's exploration of the stages of seduction. He breaks it down into clear, intentional phases, and while it might sound calculated, it's less about manipulation and more about creating a compelling connection. The first stage, choosing the right target, might seem obvious, but Green stresses the importance of selecting someone who is receptive to seduction. Not everyone wants to be seduced. Some people are too closed off, too distracted, or simply uninterested. This made me think about how often we waste time trying to win over people who aren't aligned with what we offer. The next stage, creating intrigue, was a game changer for me. Green emphasizes the power of mystery and unpredictability in capturing someone's attention. This reminded me of a coworker I used to admire, not because they were the loudest or most outgoing, but because they carried an air of mystery. They never overshared or revealed too much at once, and it made every interaction with them feel special and intentional. Green's point here is that when you keep people guessing, you draw them in. Then they're sending mixed signals, which, at first, sounded a bit manipulative. But Green explains that it's not about being dishonest, it's about creating emotional complexity. By blending warmth with a hint of distance, you keep people intrigued and off balance in a way that keeps them invested. It's a delicate dance, and as I read about it, I thought about times when someone's inconsistency made them more appealing, even if I didn't realize it at the time. One of the most powerful stages is leading your target to dependency. This one felt intense, but Green frames it as creating a world that revolves around you, a space where the person feels understood, valued, and emotionally invested. This reminded me of an old friend who had an uncanny ability to make everyone around them feel like they were the center of the universe. Spending time with them felt like stepping into a bubble where nothing else mattered, and I can see now how that kind of attention creates a strong pull. Green argues that seduction isn't just about attraction, it's about building emotional connections so deep. While the stages of seduction are fascinating, Green also spends time discussing the importance of timing. He stresses that seduction isn't a rushed process, it's a slow build, one that requires patience and an understanding of when to push forward and when to pull back. This made me reflect on how often we try to rush connections, whether out of eagerness or impatience. But Green's examples, from Napoleon's strategic alliances to Marilyn Monroe's carefully cultivated persona, show that the most compelling seductions are the ones that unfold naturally. Another aspect of the book that stood out to me is Green's emphasis on vulnerability and empathy. While seduction often gets a bad rap as being manipulative, Green highlights the importance of genuinely understanding your target's desires, fears, and insecurities. Seduction, in his view, isn't about tricking someone. It's about offering them what they crave but may not even know they want. This shifted my perspective on the process, making me realize that true seduction isn't about manipulation. For example, Green talks about how great seducers are masters of listening. They pay attention to the small details, the things people reveal without realizing it. This reminded me of a mentor I once had who always seemed to know exactly what I needed to hear, even when I didn't know it myself. They weren't just giving advice, they were tailoring their words to my specific fears and aspirations. What's interesting is that Green doesn't shy away from the darker side of seduction. He acknowledges that it can be a tool for both good and harm, depending on how it's used. For instance, he discusses how certain seducers use flattery and attention to manipulate others for their own gain. This made me think about times when I've encountered people who seemed too charming, too perfect, and how that often raised red flags. Green's honesty about the potential for misuse serves as both a cautionary tale. Another law that resonated with me was use the demonic power of words to sow confusion. While it sounds sinister, Green explains that the way we frame our words can have a profound impact on how others perceive us. This isn't about lying, it's about being deliberate with your language, creating visions that captivate entire audiences. It's not about what they're saying, it's about how they're saying it. This chapter made me think about how much we undervalue the power of tone, timing, and phrasing in our everyday conversation. By the end of this section, I found myself reflecting on how much of seduction is about self-awareness. Green doesn't just teach us how to seduce others, he also encourages us to look inward and understand our own patterns, desires, and insecurities. Seduction, in many ways, starts with understanding yourself. As the art of seduction progresses, Green delves deeper into the psychology of influence and connection. What stood out most to me in this final section was the idea that seduction isn't just about charm or persuasion. It's about creating an emotional experience so captivating that people can't resist being drawn to you. This isn't limited to romantic seduction. It applies to leadership, friendships, and any situation where influence plays a role. One of the key ideas in this section is the importance of creating a sense of anticipation. Green argues that seduction is less about instant gratification and more about the slow, tantalizing buildup. He compares it to storytelling. Great stories don't give away the ending too soon. Instead, they build suspense, dropping hints and creating a sense of mystery. This reminded me of how much more memorable and exciting certain experiences are when they're drawn out. Green also discusses the power of transformative experiences in seduction. He suggests that the most effective seducers don't just attract people, they change them. They offer their targets a new way of seeing the world, an escape from the mundane, or a chance to become someone they've always wanted to be. This idea made me think about people in my life who have had a transformative effect on me. They weren't necessarily the most charismatic or flashy, but they had a way of inspiring me to think bigger, dream differently, or see myself in a new light. One of the most provocative concepts in this section is the idea of exploiting weaknesses and insecurities. Green doesn't sugarcoat this. He acknowledges that part of seduction is understanding what people lack and positioning yourself as the solution. While this might sound manipulative, it's really about meeting people where they are and offering them what they need. For instance, someone who feels overlooked might be drawn to a person who makes them feel seen and valued. Someone who craves adventure might be captivated by someone who embodies spontaneity and freedom. Green also highlights the importance of maintaining control in seduction. He warns against becoming too emotionally invested or losing yourself in the process. This isn't about being cold or detached. It's about staying grounded and aware of your own intentions. I found this advice particularly valuable because it's easy to get swept up in the excitement of a connection and forget to set boundaries or stay true to yourself. Green emphasizes that the most powerful seducers remain in control, not just of the situation, but of their own emotions. One of my favorite parts of this section is Green's discussion of the dangers of complacency. He explains that even the most successful seductions can falter if you stop putting in effort or take the connection for granted. This applies not just to relationships but to any form of influence. For example, a leader who stops engaging with their team or a friend who becomes distant risks losing the connection they've worked so hard to build. Green's advice here is simple but crucial. Never let the spark die. Keep things fresh, exciting, and dynamic. A particularly compelling law is the seductive use of absence. Green argues that sometimes pulling away can make your presence more powerful. By creating a sense of scarcity, you heighten your value and make people appreciate you more. This reminded me of a time when I took a break from a close friendship. When we reconnected, the time apart had given both of us a new appreciation for the relationship. Green's point isn't about playing hard to get. It's about recognizing the power of distance and making people value your presence. The final chapters of the book focus on mastering the balance between control and surrender. Green explains that while seduction often involves taking the lead, there's also power in vulnerability and letting go. This duality creates a dynamic where both parties feel equally engaged and invested. It's not about dominating someone, it's about creating a shared experience that feels authentic and exciting. By the end of the book, I found myself reflecting on how much seduction is intertwined with self-awareness and emotional intelligence. Green's insights go beyond tactics and strategies. They challenge us to understand what drives human behavior and how we can use that understanding to create deeper, more meaningful connections. Whether you're looking to enhance your personal relationships, improve your leadership skills, or simply navigate social dynamics more effectively, the art of seduction offers a wealth of knowledge. One of the most powerful takeaways for me was the idea that seduction starts from within. It's not just about how you interact with others. It's about how you see yourself, what energy you project, and how you cultivate your own sense of allure. Green reminds us that true seduction isn't about tricks or manipulation. It's about authenticity, confidence, and the ability to make others feel something they've never felt before. And that wraps up our journey through The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene. What a fascinating exploration of human connection, influence, and desire. This book isn't just a guide to seduction, it's a masterclass in understanding people and the subtle forces that drive relationships. It challenges us to rethink how we interact with others and how much of our behavior is shaped by what we want, what we fear, and what we're drawn to. What I found most powerful about this book is how it reframes seduction as an art form, something creative, intentional, and deeply rooted in understanding human nature. Seduction isn't just about attraction, it's about creating experiences, building connections, and understanding what makes people feel alive. Think about that for a moment. How often do we rush through interactions without truly paying attention to what someone else needs or desires? Greene's book reminds us that paying attention, being present, and understanding the deeper emotions at play can transform the way we connect with others. One of the key takeaways for me was the idea that seduction starts with self-awareness. Before you can captivate anyone else, you need to understand yourself, your strengths, your vulnerabilities, and the energy you bring into the world. This book made me reflect on how much power lies in simply being authentic and embracing who you are. When you're comfortable in your own skin, that confidence becomes magnetic. And it's not about perfection, it's about owning your imperfections. What I also loved about this book is how it shows us the balance between strategy and sincerity. Yes, Greene talks about tactics, how to create intrigue, build anticipation, and maintain control, but he also emphasizes the importance of genuine connection. Seduction isn't just about getting what you want, it's about creating moments that leave a lasting impact, moments that make people feel seen, valued, and understood. That's something we can all strive for, whether we're trying to influence someone at work, deepen a friendship, or strengthen a romantic relationship. Another thought-provoking theme in this book is the power of mystery. In a world where we're encouraged to share everything and be completely transparent, Greene reminds us that holding a little bit back can make us more compelling. It's not about being secretive or deceptive. It's about giving people something to wonder about, something to discover. There's beauty in letting connections unfold gradually, in allowing others the thrill of getting to know you over time. It made me realize how much we underestimate the power of patience and timing in building meaningful relationships. But perhaps the most profound lesson from The Art of Seduction is that seduction isn't just something we do to others. It's something we can do for ourselves. Greene invites us to seduce our own minds, to build our own confidence, and to create an inner world that feels rich and exciting. When you seduce yourself, when you fall in love with your own life and embrace the things that make you unique, you naturally draw others in. That's the real art of seduction, creating a life that feels magnetic and inviting, not just for others, but for yourself. So, as we close out this summary, I want to leave you with a question. How can you use the ideas from this book to enhance your own life? Maybe it's about becoming more aware of the energy you bring into your relationships. Maybe it's about embracing your individuality and creating your own version of allure. Or maybe it's about learning to recognize when someone is using these techniques on you. Whatever it is, The Art of Seduction gives us the tools to better understand ourselves and the people around us. If this video sparked any new ideas or reflections, I'd love to hear about them. What's one takeaway from The Art of Seduction that resonated with you? Have you ever been seduced by someone's charm or energy without realizing it? Or have you ever used these principles in your own life, consciously or unconsciously? Share your thoughts. In the comments below, I'd love to start a conversation about how we can all bring a little more understanding, connection, and intrigue into our lives. And of course, if you enjoyed this summary, for more deep dives into books that challenge, inspire, and transform the way we see the world. Your support helps us keep exploring fascinating ideas and sharing them with you. Thank you for being part of this journey through The Art of Seduction. Remember, seduction isn't about manipulation. It's about understanding the art of human connection, using it wisely, and creating experiences that leave a lasting impact. Until next time, embrace the mystery, cultivate your allure, and keep finding ways to connect with the people and the world around you.